Baba. Welcome to the formal launch of our effort to create the Prague Hospital Memorial, which is being undertaken by the Avatar Mehera Heartland Center in Prague, Oklahoma. My name is John Leiter. Margie Connor was originally scheduled to be your MC for this event, but other things came up. So I am substituting for her, so you all have my sympathy. I am part of what is known as the Heartland Memorial Initiative, which is part of the Heartland Center that is dedicated to the creation of the memorial initiative to create the sacred site, to memorialize the sacred site, the most sacred site, one of the most sacred sites in America, attached to Mayor Baba. And that is the hospital where Mayor Baba and three of his closest women, mandali, recovered from the automobile accident in Prague in 1952. Today, we are going to share with you a film about the accident and tell you more about the creation of the Prague Hospital Memorial. This will be followed by a panel discussion with three of the creators of the film, Greg Butler, Pamela Butler-Stone, and Daniel Stone. I now want to introduce you to Daniel, who is the president of the Heartland Center, to introduce the film.
So, welcome everyone. I'm really happy today to welcome you all here and to share with you the news about and this video about the Heartland Memorial Initiative. You know, the Heartland Center several years ago produced a film called The Greatest of My Sufferings about Mayor Baba's accident in Prague in 1952, including its context and its significance. And if you've not seen the film yet, or if you want to see it again, you can find it on our website at the Heartland Center at ambheartlandcenter.org. But today's film is different because through this video, we are initiating a major new effort to actually acquire the sacred site of this hospital where Mayor Baba and several of his women mandali were treated following the accident in order to create a worldwide memorial there for all time. So we're going to show you the film now. I hope you enjoy it. It's about 20 minutes long. And then afterwards, we're going to talk a little bit about the film and about the initiative in greater depth. So let's see the film.
I was a physician who cared for Mayor Baba when they had their accident. This is a small hospital, and by the time most of the emergency department was taken care of, the hospital was a mess. Mud, glass, grass, everything you can think of scattered around. One of the ladies' most severe injury was the skull injury, which would look like a cracked egg that had been dropped about 3 feet from the floor. Even when he was in pain right after the accident, he acted like he wasn't. He said, "Go ahead and take care of everybody else. I'm not hurting." But before they left, of course, we found out all about him. In fact, every time I'd pass the door, Bob would want me to come in there and talk to him. And it was very pleasant to do it. There was someone I had to interpret at that time. He talked entirely by his fingers.
It didn't appear in the New York Times. It wasn't on the CBS Evening News. And it's never been included even as a footnote in any American history book. The only major newspaper to mention it was the Times of India in Bombay. Yet what happened near Prague, Oklahoma on 24th May 1952 was perhaps the greatest event, spiritually speaking, in the history of America, its repercussions reverberating across the centuries. The event I'm referring to was the shedding of the Avatar's blood on American soil. Meher Baba, who was severely injured in this Prague, Oklahoma automobile collision, said, "It will result in benefit to the whole world." So its significance can perhaps be thought of as an act of grace. This accident was foreshadowed by Meher Baba years before it happened, as evidenced by his words to Elizabeth Patterson, the driver of Baba's car, and the wildflower he gave her 20 years to the day beforehand, when he said, "Always keep this flower and write down this date, and someday you will know its meaning." She saved it in her Bible with these words, Baba, May 24th, 1932. But it wasn't until years later, after the accident, when she rediscovered the Bible while unpacking a trunk for a trip abroad, that she realized its meaning. And someday, the whole world will know its meaning. It was this automobile accident that Baba referred to as the greatest of my sufferings. But for America, it was the greatest of blessings. For as Baba has said, the Avatar takes upon himself the suffering of the world, which is the result of its karma. And when viewed from this perspective, nothing like Meher Baba's accident has ever happened in America before or since. It's also important to see the connection of this accident to Meher Baba's Mananash phase of his New Life work. This phase was the culmination of Baba's new life, the archetypal work he did to create the template for all aspirants for following him in the future. Mananash, or annihilation of the mind, was the phase which he initially conducted in India between October 1951 and February 52. And at its completion on February 16th, Baba began planning his first trip to Myrtle Beach, informing Elizabeth Patterson, the founder of the Mehera Spiritual Center, that he would need to be in seclusion there for the first 2 weeks of his visit to complete the Mananash work on behalf of the West. And then just a few weeks after that initial visit to the Mehera Center, the accident occurred in Oklahoma. And according to Erich Jesawala, one of the 4 companions with Baba during the New Life and Mananash, this accident marked the conclusion of the Mananash period.
End of the Mananash period. Soon after that, Baba started his preparations to go to the West in 1952. In 1952, Baba went to the West, and before going to the West, he told us that the next phase of his complicated free life would begin. And you know what happened then, of course. When he went to the West, to the States, United States of America, he met with the accident right in the heart of the continent. And there, the complicated free life began. That's the end of the Mananash period, boy.
After 12 arduous days in the Prague Hospital, followed by a month of convalescence in Myrtle Beach, Baba and his mandali traveled to New York, staying in Scarsdale. Phyllis Frederick, who arranged the accommodations there, recalled what Baba shared with her on July 13th that year. Baba said, "America was after my blood for a long time." Baba repeated this with a beaming smile, as if everything had gone according to his wish. But how can one fathom this? He had 2 bones of his lower left leg broken, his left arm at the shoulder broken, and the septum of his nose broken, his upper gums injured and his tongue lacerated and bleeding from the lower dentures he was wearing. Baba also suffered due to the severity of his beloved Mehera's injuries. She suffered a fractured skull, the worst one that Dr. Burleson had ever seen, and he even said at the time that he didn't think that she would survive. So Meher Baba's triumphant expression regarding the accident seemed to pertain to his universal work, which for him was always paramount and which she placed above his physical well-being. The Prague Hospital, where Meher Baba and his companions spent those 12 days, has already become a sacred site, visited by pilgrims from throughout the world. The hospital staff there has welcomed many pilgrims into Baba's hospital room, a room they refer to as the prayer room, and the key to the room is labeled Meher Baba. And now, more than 70 years after the accident, Meher Baba has given his lovers a unique opportunity. The Avatar Meher Baba Heartland Center learned this year that the Prague Hospital is planning to move to a new location in as little as 3 years, and they are now in the process of creating the plans for their new facility. And they will soon begin fundraising, and the city of Prague, which owns the hospital, has expressed confidence that they will be successful and able to move, and at that time, its current premises would be available for acquisition. Baba remarked in 1931 on his first trip to America that there would eventually be 5 major centers for him in the United States. Later in the 1940s, he further elaborated that one of them would be in the center of the country, a remark that now seems to clearly indicate the Heartland Center in Prague, founded in 2002. And acquisition of the hospital has always been a long-term intention of the Heartland Center. But the realization of this intention is coming much closer, and with that, the importance of preparing to take action has become imperative. The Heartland Center held a visioning session in 2021 before we knew about the pending move of the hospital. That session resulted in a recognition of the essential need to begin preparing now for the moment when the hospital might be available for acquisition. This session led over the next year to the formation of what is now called the Heartland Memorial Initiative. And in 2022, a group of 20 Baba lovers from throughout the country converged in Prague, and there they dedicated themselves to the Heartland Memorial Initiative to acquire and memorialize the sacred sites in and around Prague associated with Meher Baba. And then, with Baba's impeccable timing, just months after this gathering was when we learned of the hospital's intention to move. So this finds us today at a pivotal moment, and we are optimistic for now that with the Heartland Memorial Initiative, it seems Baba is bringing together a dynamic group of people who collectively possess the capabilities necessary to bring this opportunity to fruition. And there will be many more opportunities for others to participate as Baba shows the way forward. We're not viewing this just as a long-term goal that's going to be achieved by a long-term fundraising effort. When the hospital becomes available, it will require an immediate response. And if the opportunity is lost, it will likely be lost forever. The hospital could well be demolished, changed in a way that destroys or damages the sacred places within it, or otherwise become no longer accessible for pilgrimage. So this may well be a once-in-an-avataric cycle opportunity. Therefore, the Heartland Center needs to be prepared to commit to the hospital acquisition as soon as it becomes available. Financial help from the worldwide Baba family to secure this sacred site for Meher Baba is urgently needed. And if successful, seekers now and for centuries to come will be able to make pilgrimage to the Prague Hospital Memorial and partake of the treasure Meher Baba left there for humanity. For our goal is to memorialize the hospital, preserve it for posterity as a sacred site, and mark it as a place of pilgrimage for the whole world. And detailed plans are already in the making. Here is an architectural drawing showing one possibility of the hospital as a memorial. And in this drawing, you can see plans for much more than just Baba's room. There are also plans for Mehera's hospital room, Mehera's garden, the emergency room, a meeting room with a stage, and a museum. The Heartland Center currently is comprised of 2 houses in Prague that are adjacent to the hospital. The Burleson House belonged to Dr. Ned Burleson, who was the doctor who created the hospital and treated Baba, Mehera, and the others at the time of the accident. These 2 houses today provide accommodation for all those who make pilgrimage to Prague to experience Baba's sacred sites. In acquiring the hospital, the Heartland Center envisions expanding to occupy the entire block on which the 2 houses and the hospital now sit. So here is one architect's vision for what the entire Heartland Center complex might become. Of course, the full development of the site will not come about for some time, and there will no doubt be other design ideas that will be considered before a final design is selected. But we envision that the memorial built there will honor Baba's suffering and foster an awakening of himself in the hearts of all who visit. The acquisition and memorialization of the hospital is just the first part of the longer-term vision for the Heartland Memorial Initiative. That vision calls for the eventual acquisition and development of property adjacent to the accident site to become a major retreat center. However, that property is not currently available, so at this time we view it as a later stage in the memorialization initiative. Now, I also want to share something with you from my own experience. For in 1972, I traveled overland from Europe to India in search of my spiritual master, a search that ultimately led me to Meher Baba. And this search started in Istanbul. And while there, I visited the Topkapi Palace Museum, one of the oldest and most acclaimed museums about the Ottoman Empire. But the most significant treasure exhibited there is a single hair from the Prophet Muhammad's beard, which has always been venerated by Muslims as a source of great blessings. This is what most attracted me and what I believe to be true for the over 3 million people who file through that museum every year. These visitors come to experience that link to the eternal, an experience made possible simply by being in the presence of a tangible link to the form of the God-man. I too had that experience when I first visited Prague a number of years ago, having been invited by the Heartland Center's then president to run a retreat for the board. Up to that time, I knew, of course, about Prague and the accident, as well as the Heartland Center, but I viewed it mainly as a historical site at Baba's and not necessarily one that I was drawn to visit. When I arrived, I was escorted to Baba's hospital room, and as I entered, I was overwhelmed by the experience of Baba's presence in that room, and it was totally unexpected. And it was also a unique experience that captured a facet of Baba for me that I'd not found anywhere else. And each time I returned to that room, I continue to find Baba there. And I've since learned that my experience is by no means unique. Countless people from all over the world who have visited this site have had their own unique and profound experiences in that hospital room. So I've realized that in fact, this is not just a historic site. It's a sacred site, one that is capable of lifting one into the realm of the divine. And now, in the advent of Meher Baba, it appears that his lovers will have the opportunity to create a memorial of the hospital facilities where he suffered for humanity. The vision for this memorial is to be nothing short of a major world pilgrimage site. In conclusion, we have these words from Bal Kalchuri, one of Meher Baba's closest disciples and author of the epic biography of Baba's life, Lord Mehera. He said, Baba was lying on the soft dirt, bathed in blood. He had foretold that the soil of America wanted his blood, and in his infinite mercy, he was spilling it there. It was as if a knife had impaled the heart of our age as it watched the living Christ bleeding helplessly on that Midwestern road. "Oh, America," it cried, "you thirsted for his blood, now quench your thirst. But remember to remind future generations that along with his blood, he also brought and left there the divine treasure." Meher Baba has given us the responsibility to safeguard this divine treasure, for we are the fortunate ones who realize what he left there through his suffering. Success or failure is not in our hands. We can only do our best as stewards of this treasure. But Baba said, "My work is your opportunity." So this is the opportunity he has given to his worldwide family to serve him, to love him, and to please him by creating through this memorial a tangible link to the eternal.
Hope you enjoyed the film and that you found it inspiring. I know I did. We now want to engage with some of those involved in the making of the film to explore some of the different aspects of what was covered in the film. So we have with us Greg, Pamela, and obviously Daniel. So let's start with you, Greg. You were the director of both The Greatest of My Sufferings and this film, the Prague Hospital Memorial, a tangible link to the eternal. What was your experience in creating the film, and how was it different from your creation of The Greatest of My Sufferings?
Well, thank you, John. First of all, the film was created by a wonderful team. In addition to myself, there was Daniel, Pamela, and Susan MacDonald, who's not here today. The whole experience was one of feeling Baba's guiding hand. The day after I was asked to write a script and direct this film, I came across the words of Francis Brabazon about Baba's first visit to Australia and it being the most important event in the history of Australia. And then it all became clear that Baba's accident in Prague was the most important event spiritually that happened in the history of America. And the opening words for this film came to me then. And after getting those words down, I knew we had the direction for the film, and the rest would follow easily. I was feeling bliss. I kept seeing in my mind's eye Baba lying on the ground on the side of the road, radiating love to the entire country, a dispensation of divine grace. I wrote down a flood of ideas that came from this realization, and the first draft was completed quickly. And then our team, Daniel, Pamela, Susan, and myself, through several meetings, crafted and polished it into final form. There was also input from several members of the Heartland Memorial Initiative. Comparing this experience to the creation of the greatest of my sufferings, the experiences were similar, but the creative process of this film, the Prague Hospital Memorial, a tangible link to the eternal, was one born from inspiration. The greatest of my sufferings, a much longer film, was a bit different, and it took much longer to make. It started without a clear direction, and the inspiration came later in its 18 months of creating. As far as what meaning this film's making had for me, it was one of drawing inspiration from the belief that the work was vitally important in helping in the acquisition of a most significant sacred site, the Prague Hospital, for the Heartland Center. And if that is successful, that would be one of the most meaningful experiences I could ever imagine, an experience sustaining me for as long as I live.
Greg, Baba shared his experience with you, and you've shared that experience with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Some people wonder whether Mayor Baba placed importance on the memorializing of sites associated with his life. Some may point to the fact that when Guru Prasad became available to the mandali after Baba dropped his body, that they did not take advantage of that. So how does this initiative fit in with Mayor Baba's own directives and statements given to us by the mandali about the importance of preserving access to these places of pilgrimage where he had been physically?
So, John, you're right about Guru Prasad. However, that was a very large estate offered to the mandali very shortly after Baba had dropped the body. And at that time, the trust actually had virtually no money. So it would have been completely overwhelmed with the costs of carrying and maintaining such a huge and complicated estate. So they did, however, eventually create a smaller memorial on that property that many of the people listening may have visited. But it's also true that Baba had incorporated into the deed for the Avatar Meher Baba Trust as one of its main objects that the trust was to provide access to places where Meher Baba had spent time. And in keeping with this, the trust has recently, the trust created not only the Guru Prasad Memorial, but more recently, a memorial for Baba's birthplace in Pune. And it has recently committed major funding for development and memorialization of the site adjacent to where Meher Baba had his accident outside Satara in India in 1956. And the trust is preparing to develop a site at Mandla in Madhya Pradesh, India, where Baba had spent time and even had a replica of his samadhi built. And of course, we know of the special places in Australia, Myrtle Beach, and Ojai that were also sanctified by his presence. So these sacred sites really are of great importance. And it's also important to note that Baba said that whenever he visits a place or stays there, the spiritual atmosphere there is greatly elevated.
Daniel, that helps me understand better.
Reading.
But help me understand this. The film emphasized the connection of the accident to Mananash. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so John, I only heard recently when we were making this film what Erich had said in the film, that the accident marked the conclusion of the Mononosh period. But it confirmed what I had already come to feel and believe, that the accident in Prague, Oklahoma was directly related to Baba's Mononosh work that he conducted initially in India and then further conducted at the Mehera Center and finally completed it with the accident. And as Greg put it so succinctly one day, he said, the accident seemed to put the nail in the coffin on the death of the mind to bring about the awakening of the heart.
Thank you. So, Pamela, the premise of this film is that the Prague site is not simply a historic site, but it is, more importantly, a sacred site. What has been your experience and the experience of others in going to Prague?
Good question. I will talk first about my experience on my first trip to Prague. And I had 2 flights and an hour plus car ride to get to Prague, which is a small town in the middle of the country. Population, I think 2,400. And I was so surprised, though, once I entered the Heartland Center, by how powerfully I felt Baba's presence. I felt that I was in the middle of nowhere and the center of the universe simultaneously. And the quality of Baba's presence that I've been most aware of there on that trip and future trips is that of his compassion, which I feel especially strongly in Baba's hospital room. To me, being in that room where Baba spent 12 days recovering from the accident and where he also shed his blood, felt very much like being in his samadhi. Also, I've heard accounts of people from around the world who have shared that they're coming to Prague, visiting the hospital room and the accident site where Baba and his mandali shed their blood, is really one of the most profound experiences of Mehera Baba's presence that they have had. And others have talked about a deep sense of healing that they've associated with their pilgrimage to Prague.
Pamela, I know that some people are hesitant about going to Prague because, as you said, it seems like it's in the middle of nowhere. So what is actually involved in making the pilgrimage to Prague?
Well, it can be as straightforward as flying into Oklahoma City, renting a car, driving the hour and 10 minutes to get to Prague. And that's how many pilgrims come. However, there are some people that prefer to drive the route and really retrace the whole route that Baba and his mandali took on their trip from Myrtle Beach across the country. And that route also parallels, in large part, the Trail of Tears that I'm sure most people know about. And that route is the one that my brother Greg and his wife Maggie followed when they were gathering footage for the film, The Greatest of My Sufferings. In either case, this is a major pilgrimage opportunity. And while it may not be so convenient to get to Prague, I'm reminded of Erich Jesawala saying that we must accept wholeheartedly any and all trials and tribulations that may beset us in our pilgrimage, knowing full well that these very difficulties, when happily accepted without reservation or expectation, mark his acceptance of our pilgrimage. But also know that when you get there, the accommodations in the Heartland Center's Burleson House and Morrison House are quite comfortable and lovely. And there is an incredible warmth and hospitality that's shown by our resident caretaker, Jane Montgomery, who also will help people get to the accident site and to visit the hospital.
Thank you for that, Pamela. Greg, you mentioned earlier that the making of this film was different from the making of your prior film because the cause of this project was so important. What makes the Prague Hospital Memorial project unique and especially urgent?
Wow, there are many other very important projects in the Baba world. This is the only one associated with a major Baba site where the site itself is not secured, and where if it is not secured, there is a serious possibility that it could be forever lost. Every other Baba project is either not site dependent or part of an already established site where there is no external threat associated with it the way there is for this project. A project with a goal to save a sacred site of Meher Baba's advent that is 100% alive and pulsating with his presence and divine love.
Greg, this is a most special project. Thank you for that. But how much money is needed?
So there's going to be money needed for the purchase of the hospital itself from the city of Prague that owns it. But there's also going to be funds needed to renovate, restore, do repairs, and for operating costs. Now, we're not going to know the exact costs until the point comes if and when, as we believe it will happen, the hospital becomes available. However, we have been doing very careful estimates. We had a professional appraisal of the building done recently and an expert analysis of the work that would need to be done if and when it's acquired. And on the basis of that, we've set an overall target of $1.5 million that would allow for the acquisition, restoration, renovation, and at least the first couple of years of operating costs. And of course, there's going to be ongoing costs and need for support beyond that. Now, the Heartland Center, good news is we've already accumulated over $180,000 toward our goal. So we are on the way, but there is a long way still to go.
Knowing the practical parts of this, what you've just shared with us, Daniel, is very helpful. But how confident are you all that the hospital will be available for acquisition? And if not completely confident, why are you starting to fundraise now?
Well, the hospital has told us of their intention to move, and they're interested in selling to us as they know the significance of the hospital for the Heartland Center. They also will have to raise the funds to build their new hospital. And as Daniel said earlier in the film, the city that owns the hospital is confident that they will be successful in finding the necessary funding, but it's not a certainty. However, if and when the hospital is available for purchase, it will be an open, competitive bid process. And at that point, we need to be in a position to quickly and positively respond. So it is imperative that we act now to prepare for that.
So what I'm hearing, Pamela, is that we don't know the actual when, but we know the time is now.
Exactly. Readiness, becoming ready and prepared for that moment is crucial.
So how can people donate? What's involved?
So the Heartland Center is a 501c3 organization, so all donations to it are tax deductible. And an easy way to donate is simply to go to our website, ambheartlandcenter.org. And you can there press a button and make a one-time donation, or you can make recurring donations. And there are also instructions on the website for how to send checks. Also, there may well be people who would like to wait to donate until the time when the hospital becomes available. So you can do that through making a pledge, and there's guidance on the website for how to do that. And finally, Bequests are extremely important for this kind of effort as a way of providing a base of support for the ongoing operations. And again, you can find guidance on the website if this is something you'd like to consider.
Daniel, as a follow-up question, and a question I don't want to ask, if the hospital is not able to be acquired, what happens to the donations?
So again, we do feel confident, but we're not absolutely sure that the hospital will be acquired. We know they want to move. We know they're making clear efforts to allow that to happen, and they want to sell to us. But if for some reason it is not able to be acquired, then the Heartland Center would then shift its focus to acquiring and then developing land adjacent to the accident site in order to develop there a retreat center as well as a pilgrimage site.
So there's a comprehensive plan. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, there is. Yes.
We in the West like to think that maybe everything is governed by money, but because we know Baba, we know that that's not the most important thing. Beyond contributing financially, are there any other ways for people to be involved in the work of the Heartland Center?
There are. And one is to just share information with others about the Heartland Center, about this project, and encourage people to take the opportunity to make a pilgrimage to Prague. If and when the hospital is acquired, there will be many opportunities to assist with preparing the memorial through work parties or coming to stay in Prague for a period of time to help out. Also, we'll be creating a museum at the hospital memorial. So if you have Baba treasures, you could consider donating them to the Heartland Center to be displayed there. And in general, stay connected through the Heartland Center mailing list and by visiting our website, ambheartlandcenter.org, and also our Facebook and Instagram pages. But I would say most important is to visit Prague and discover firsthand the divine treasure that Baba has left there.
Well, thank you for sharing that treasure with us. We know that it's the heart that is the most important thing that we are working with here. That's what Baba gave us. And I want to say thank you for what you've done. Is there anything else that any of you would like to contribute to us today?
So I just want to reiterate what it says in the film, that we really do try to always keep in our awareness that the success of this effort is in Baba's hands. It's not in our hands. But Baba has indicated that by serving him, we're serving our own self that draws us closer to him in love. He said, "My work is your opportunity." And I think that all of us who have so far been involved to this point feel blessed with the opportunity to contribute to this effort. And we hope that the circle of those involved in this initiative will continue to expand to encompass many, many more of his lovers from around the world who are inspired to join in supporting and contributing to this effort to create through the Prague Hospital Memorial this tangible link to the eternal.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Greg, and all of you who are part of the Heartland Center and the Heartland Memorial Initiative. And I want to thank all of you all who have joined us today, and we hope you continue to stay connected to the Heartland Memorial Initiative. Again, I want to say thank you and Jai Baba.